They are three young Chinese Canadians who are embracing their Hong Kong culture through food while finding community along the way. As part of CBC's Rediscovering Culture series, I joined Ken Yao, Rachel Tong, and Jamie Fung in the kitchen to find out how they are reconnecting to their cultural roots by learning to make the dishes they grew up with. Inside this kitchen, something delicious is in the works. Ken Yao, Rachel Tong, and Jamie Fung are inside Ken's home kitchen today, cooking together for the first time.
We're making, I guess it's like very specific to like a Hong Kong diner, Portuguese baked rice.
The dish originated in Macau, a former Portuguese colony that is right across the river from Hong Kong. It's a classic dish they all grew up eating. To accompany it, Rachel is also making a classic Hong Kong diner drink, red bean freeze. For each of them, learning to make these dishes is a way of embracing and connecting with their Chinese culture. It's a journey that has had its bumps.
In grade 6, I remember like bringing this like curry beef bun to school, and you know, like it's classic Hong Kong like bun with like curry inside, and I guess it's not the prettiest filling. And this girl was like, "Oh, that looks like dung. Like, what is that?" Obviously, at the time, I was like, "Oh my god, I gotta like hide my lunch."
Growing up in a Western society and like seeing Food Network, it's always like glorified that like you know French or Italian, or it's never like, oh, Chinese cuisine.
We're constantly, and we're still to this day, constantly wrestling the idea of like, you know, should we be more assimilating to like Western cultures, or should we be holding on to our traditions? I guess it's like this constant identity crisis.
Rachel Tong moved to Toronto from Hong Kong with her family when she was 12.
During the pandemic, I haven't been able to eat with my family as much, so I started to miss those foods. I think before that, I always took it for granted.
It was then she decided to start an Instagram account called Nostalgic Foods, sharing videos of how to make some of her favorite dishes growing up, like the Hong Kong version of tomato egg.
I remember it distinctly, and I was like maybe in grade 1, like eating like 4 plates of it. So some of them are my family's recipes, some of them are things that I remember eating and I'm trying to figure out how to make. But yeah, mostly it's like I would text my mom and she would send me a voice note like, "Oh, this is how you do it." As an adult going back to eat it, it's like, oh, these flavors are so like exciting to me.
Through social media, Rachel has also found a community. Like her, Jamie Fung has also been learning and sharing how to make some of his favorite dishes on his Instagram account, Enter the Gateway.
Now I'm gonna add my bamboo shoots.
I wanted to make Hong Kong style dishes, number one, because like these are dishes that we've, first and foremost, are delicious and like we grew up loving. And it wasn't until like later on, like thinking about it, that I kind of started to realize that there's a lot of like, you know, just life philosophies behind a lot of the way that these dishes are made. When it comes to Hong Kong, like it's not an easy city to live in, right? So you know, everything there has to be like really efficient. A very famous dish is like, you know, the macaroni and soup dish, which is, it doesn't even contain any like Chinese ingredients, but it's Hong Kong style because like they use their mentality and philosophy of just like having something simple, tasty, quick and good.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much Hong Kong breakfast.
I think it tells a really interesting story.
For Chef Ken Yao, it's important to honor his culture by preserving his family's recipes.
My mom definitely cooked a lot, and everybody's just like having fun and playing mahjong, and she would be the one that like gets up and cooks. And she would like cook for like 20, 30 people easily.
During the pandemic, he started an online shop called K-Market, selling handmade foods inspired by his mother's cooking, like her zhongzi, a Chinese dumpling made with glutinous rice, filled with chunks of meat and wrapped in bamboo leaves.
I think like 2 Thanksgivings ago, I asked my mom, like, hey, like you have to teach me how to do this, or else like I won't be able to pass it on to my children, and it's lost forever. I would remember like my mom would make like hundreds of these, and then I remember my grandma would be there and we would make hundreds and hundreds of them. Like I just want to keep learning and learning.
And finally, it's time to eat, because sharing a meal together is also part of the journey of connecting with their roots.
All right, go away, right?
It's just like, oh, there's so much to talk about. Like, how did your mom do it? How did my mom do it?
It's like even like a simple question about like, you know, what ingredients were used in something, or like why these flavor profiles exist. It usually kind of like cascades into like deeper conversations, at some point it always ends up and like we talk about like maybe some of the struggles that our parents might have gone through or some of the challenges that they had immigrating.
In food, like there's a lot of story and history behind it. And for my family, like they don't usually talk about their past a lot. But when there's a dish, like let's say I experiment with this dessert and my dad eats it and he's like, you know what, like grandma used to make it like this. And like the story comes and flows.
Cheers! Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.